We saw earlier at the top of the show the clips of various anchors talking about a Republican revolt, a so-called Republican establishment against Donald Trump. This sprung from a New York Times story saying there is panic. 3 weeks after a Washington Post story said there is panic among the GOP because Donald Trump looks like a serious threat to win this nomination. Why is this a story? I mean, if the GOP isn't actually able to do anything.
They should have been panicked a long time ago because he's been leading the polls for months. And so if they are panicked now, I'm not saying they should be or shouldn't be. I'm a reporter, but I think, you know, wake up and smell the coffee. Donald Trump has been dominating this race on both sides.
But there was this refrain in the press. Yeah. It's a summer squall. Right. This will fade.
And you know
he will implode.
The press was wrong. And you know what? They're probably wrong now. Dead wrong. Pick whatever you want to say. And so I'm very skeptical when I hear this media narrative coming out there, started at the New York Times, as you say, and then parroted by all kinds of other people on the left, right, and center, that, oh, you know, there's panic and the Republicans have to do something. Nobody knows what they can do or if they will actually have the guts to do anything. Because, by the way, every Republican presidential candidate who has tried to challenge Donald Trump, starting with Rick Perry, Bobby Jindal, they've all gone down. I've got news for you. And so the pundits who told us Donald Trump was not for real, now saying, well, the Republicans have to do something. They're panicking. I don't believe them now either.
Jim, the New York Times on the editorial page has really gone after Trump. Vehemently racist, liar, and all of that. Here's today's paper. Front page, news story, 95,000 words, many of them ominous.
Is this the gun editorial?
No, it has nothing to do with guns. This is all about the Donald. Yeah. And it's a news story in which various experts analyze everything that Trump has said this week. I'll let you explain a little bit more what it's about, but what do you make of this as a news story?
The opening paragraph, the dark power of his words, Howard. It's clearly something occult about it, vaguely satanic. The whole thing is a very lengthy exercise. It feels like it's approaching Godwin's law. I kept waiting for the chapter. Well, you know who else was interested in expanding real estate purchases back in Germany in the 1930s and stuff? They compare him to every demagogue throughout history. You know one of the nefarious words he uses? We. I don't mean the French yes. I mean, you know. Now, I remember, yes, we can. I remember, you know, Donald Trump divides people into us and them. Do you remember the Obama ad from 2012 saying Mitt Romney, he's not one of us? I mean, as much as listen, I am king of the Donald Trump haters club. I've written all kinds of critical stuff about
membership?
Going back to the 80s, all right?
We're talking about the media fairness.
It was Spy magazine and myself.
Right.
But I look at this, and like, it's more than a little unfair. It's something that John Kasich had to compare him to a Nazis. Well, Donald Trump is not the man in the high castle.
And I covered the Obama campaign in 2012, and he also had an ad saying that Mitt Romney gave a worker cancer, basically. Yeah, and I didn't hear a lot of media outrage either.
You know, fine to criticize Donald Trump's words, fine to criticize whether he knows what he's talking about, but this, you know, language analysis says he's like George Wallace, he's like Joe McCarthy. What do you make of that?
Well, again, it goes back to the earlier point that this is not someone who sits down for interviews, and so they are relying on what they've heard in the rallies, what they have seen and heard from his own speeches, because he doesn't sit down for printed newspaper and he goes on television, yes,
no,
a lot, and he dials in, and he dials in.
The Washington Post a couple of days.
Trump regularly talks to Robert Costa at the Washington Post. He has talked to Maggie Haber at the New York Times. I don't think inaccessibility is the problem. He wouldn't comment for this story.
Yes, he did not comment for the story, and again, but he doesn't go for the long, when you ask the questions, he doesn't have it answers, and so therefore they're parsing his words, and they're going through and trying to determine who he is as a person based on what they see in as far as in the forums and in the larger public and in the drive-by, you know, kind of run-through television interviews that he does.
Instead of chewing over the sinister implications of his policy details, because he hasn't put out that many. He's put immigration and a tax plan. They go through these sinister implications of his words. And every answer from the Donald is like, how are we going to do it, Howard? We're just going to do it. That's how we're going to do it. You know, this kind of this circular logic, half-completed sentences. So they leaves a lot of room for interpretation.
They counted in the last week, he used the word horrible 14 times. He used the word weak 13 times.
Well, you know,
how that moves the debate forward.
Happening. It's been a horrible week.
It's horrible when terrorists kill innocent civilians.
And by the way,
it's not out of the blue.
One of their lead anecdotes about Donald Trump's language is that a 12-year-old girl in Virginia at a Trump rally saying, quote, I'm scared. What are you going to do to protect this country? I'm not defending everything Donald Trump has said or done, but when a 12-year-old stands up and says, I'm scared, what do you want to do? If your language is a little harsh, it's because a 12-year-old is saying.
Yeah, exactly. Let me turn to the Democrats now. Hillary Clinton on ABC's This Week. This morning, George Stephanopoulos, who of course worked with Hillary Clinton in the Clinton White House, of course was criticized for making those $75,000 in donations to the Clinton Foundation, doing a pretty tough interview, asking her about her email, her honesty and trustworthiness, what she would do about ISIS, and then he played this clip from, who else, Donald Trump. Let's watch.
She'll do a couple of minutes in Iowa, meaning a short period of time. And then she goes home. You don't see her for 5, 6 days. She goes home. She goes to sleep. I'm telling you. She doesn't have the strength. She doesn't have the stamina.
Oh, goodness gracious.
I guess you don't agree.
Well, who can agree with anything he says that is, subject to 1 second of fact-checking?
Let's go around quickly. Penny, what did you make of Stephanopoulos posing that as a video question?
Oh, I think it was a great way to get to see Mrs. Clinton's reaction. I mean, it is true. I mean, what she is saying, it is a 1 minute fact check that he is doing, and so it shows her her own ability to laugh at herself and at somebody else.
Short answers, Jim.
And what a laugh it is that she laughs at herself. The observation about Trump, yes, he does do a lot of televised interviews. How often does Hillary do really tough, hostile, pressing questions? Televised?
She's not answered many of them.
I'm out there with her, not very often. Yeah. But I do think on the fact check part that she mentioned, I've been out with her, and she doesn't space it out by 6 days. I think she sometimes has a lighter schedule than other candidates. She's also far ahead, whereas on the Republican side, they're fighting for dear life because they've got so many candidates and they're closer, but she doesn't space her events out by 6 days.
A little bit of political overstatement. All right.